Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV. Welcome, everyone, to another episode on Follow the Brand. This is your host, Grant McGaugh, and today, of course, we're in that season, that special season I call it the business development season. That way, what I've been doing here of late is to talk to some of my peers that have been in the sales profession for a number of years. And some of those have been specifically in the healthcare profession for a number of those years as well. And they have a story. And because of the platform that I have, and that we have a number of different healthcare professionals that tune in to Follow the Brand, I wanted you to hear directly from a professional that I think highly of, that I think can give some good intelligence, some good knowledge about himself, why he does what he does, and how he can have a positive impact on your particular facility or hospital system. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Mr. Anthony Forina.
Hi, Grant. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's really nice to be here.
Absolutely, Anthony. And since you're here, I want you to walk us back. Now, have you been I know you're in Palm Beach. Have you been in Palm Beach your whole life? Or are you from the East Coast? Or tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it'll be pretty apparent pretty quickly with my accent, but I grew up in northern New Jersey. I spent 18 years in Morris County, New Jersey. And then, like every northern New Jersey kid, you have a couple of alternatives. You can go to Rutgers. Princeton definitely wasn't an option for me. But a lot of the kids in New Jersey want to go to school in the South. So I selected a small school in Southwest Virginia, Radford University. Moved down to Radford University, spent 4 really fun years, learned a lot about sales and marketing and having fun and being in a fraternity and developing relationships. And I learned a lot of life lessons. And then on my 22nd birthday, I moved to West Palm Beach. I've been here ever since. So it's been, almost 20 years, something like that, in the northern Palm Beaches now. So
but why Palm Beach? I mean, how do you just pick Palm Beach? Were you just coming down for spring break and you just said, hey, this is a good place to start my career?
That's it's a relevant question because I was thinking about what I want to do in my career. And I thought, if I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to move to Hollywood or New York City. If I'm going to get into medical sales, I should be in Southeast Florida. So I had some buddies from high school that moved down here from high school. So I had a really nice friend group to join down here. But then in the back of my mind, I said, well, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it go into medical sales, I should be in a place that has a lot of hospitals, and the healthcare industry is really, really big. So South Florida fit the bill.
But now I'm intrigued now, because that's interesting. Now I see what got you to West Palm Beach. But what got you into medical sales?
I was sitting in a college classroom. It was a marketing class. And I remember Dr. Lawler, he invited a pharmaceutical sales rep to come speak to our class. And I said I could do that because I was really good in science. That was like the heyday. If you've ever seen that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal when he's selling Pfizer Viagra, it was the heyday of pharmaceutical sales. This is 2000, 2002. So I was like, man, I could do that, and I could do that well. It fits the bill. I could just sell pharmaceuticals in Southeast Florida. So then I got down here, and I remember talking to recruiters, and they said, well, you don't have any experience. We're looking for somebody with more experience, probably somebody who was a little more mature. They said, you know what? If you go sell copiers for 2 years, we'll get you a pharmaceutical sales job. And I was like, that's cool. He said, by the way, you don't want to do pharmaceutical sales. That's kind of a dying industry. Yeah, it seems good now, but what you really want to do is be in medical devices. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was really profound advice. So my career, my goal shifted. It was, okay, let me get um, a copier sales job. And he recommended finding the biggest, baddest company I could possibly find with the most robust training program. I didn't realize why, but I trusted this recruiter, and it's too bad I don't remember his name. I remember where his office was. It was right off of Clintmore in Boca Raton. That office is probably turned over many times now, but I owe him a lot because he kind of reshifted my focus from pharmaceuticals, which I would have been very unhappy in pharmaceuticals, and made me focus on medical devices. So I got that copier job, and I worked for Konica Minolta in Boca Raton. I had some really good managers, and I made a lot of good friends. I keep in touch with some of them on social media, but they taught me a lot. They taught me, what it was like to kind of do the grunt work in sales and prospect and do all the unglamorous things that would prepare me for kind of a better lifestyle once I was settled into these higher echelon medical device IT type roles. So everything kind of built on all my experience built on itself to get me to where I am today. So I'm grateful for that.
No, there's no question about that. When I took a look at some of your history that I found on LinkedIn, and I truly like your LinkedIn profile. I think you're telling a story there. This is a personal brand show as well as business development. So I try to take a look at some of the guests, what they're doing, how they're telling their story online. And I saw you did a lot of work at Hillrom. I mean, you really took home that medical device world, and now you're at Cisco. Now, did they recruit you? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think maintaining my network over the years was helpful. So I think the biggest leap for me was when I actually left Hillrom and joined St. Jude Medical, which became Abbott, because then it became more of a healthcare economics role. So really the story gets interesting. I think after I left copiers, got my first job medical devices, went to Hillrom, spent 5 or 6 years at each of these organizations, learned a lot, learned about the inner workings of a hospital, everybody from environmental services to the C-suite with Hillrom because I was selling hospital beds, nurse call systems, capital equipment for my first role. And then what I was missing though was experience working with physicians and understanding what made physicians tick, understanding the difference between a physician that owned his own practice and a physician that was employed by a hospital, understanding how to help them grow as business people or help them further their careers. So St. Jude Medical, I started working, and I kind of had my dream job at that point. I was in it. I remember the first time I was wearing a mask. I was at Bethesda Hospital, and I just that feeling of, oh my God, I'm doing this. I have lead on. I didn't even know how to put on my lead. Now I'm standing next to an interventional cardiologist. He's using my product, which is this 3D high tech imaging system, and he's saying, "Hey, what do you think?" And for that split second, I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is everything I wanted to do." So I had that moment of like, whoa, we're really going to do this, and I'm adding value to the case. So that was part of it was the clinical interaction with the physicians, becoming that trusted resource in the case. The other part was outside of the cases when I was trying to generate business and get to decision makers and then justify those decisions with the hospital decision makers, right? So imagine you have a physician that says, "Hey, yeah, man, your product looks great. I think it'll help my patients. I want to use it. Tell me more about it." Okay, great. So then let's together take this to our chief operating officer so that we can make the healthcare economics case. And that was really the biggest lesson learned was how do I empower my champions, that my physician champions, and how do I empower some of the VP of cardiovascular services to help get our product through the finish line. So fast forward, Abbott says, "You know what? We love St. Jude Medical. We're going to buy you." Okay. Now I'm like, okay, well, how do I survive this merger and acquisition? Because now what you're seeing is a lot of this consolidation. You've been seeing it for years in the medical device space. So St. Jude Medical says, okay, we're going to sell to Abbott, and I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, how do I get through this? So luckily I did. I think it was because I thought outside of the box and I had more to say, and I became kind of the concierge for St. Jude Medical. Like, whether it was my product or not, I wanted to be involved in it. So St. Jude had many divisions in the cardiovascular space. I wanted to be known as that St. Jude guy, that one-stop shop that I could triage that need and then delegate it to whomever that specialist was, which was kind of foreshadowing of my life at Cisco. So I was actually asked to run the Southeast United States for the interventional cardiology space for Abbott, which was a different take for me because I was in a leadership role, but I didn't have direct reports. So the challenge that I had was learning to lead without authority. I didn't hire people, but I had to lead them and sell them on my strategy on how to move an account in Alabama that I've never been to, and they know the dynamics to the product line that we were selling to the customer, but also selling to the Abbott sales force that was being integrated with St. Jude. So that was challenging. So, but it worked well. I mean, I really liked it. I think that taste of leadership I liked. I knew I didn't want to be a regional sales director. I liked that role of leading without authority, setting the strategy, being called in for the big meetings, having that pressure on, being able to compartmentalize and manage a travel schedule from that life that I had just in Palm Beach County, where I could go to, man, 8 hospitals in a day if I had to having a regional role where I had to fly through Atlanta and then somehow get to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and then back to Atlanta so I could get to Emory to meet up with their Emory fellows and tell the story. So so then imagine this. So St. Jude gets bought by Abbott. A lot of my buddies didn't make it like I made it. So they ended up kind of reformulating at a startup company. And that was really cool to me. I was like, all right, now let's take a chance here. Right. I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
heard, I heard stock options. I heard, no, I said, let's go for this Silicon Valley. I heard all the cool things that, the medical device reps want to hear. So I was like, let's do it. Let's take a shot. So I joined this company called Vital Connect, which is a amazing technology. It's a high tech band aid that would send vital signs from the band aid to anywhere, and it would end up in a cloud. So for the pandemic, I was like, oh my god, this is it. We have hit pay dirt. Like, this can really make a difference. This is something that can really help with hospital capacity. It essentially creates a hospital grade monitoring anywhere in the world. So a patient's home, you're hearing about hospital at home. This falls right into that. But what I learned during the pandemic is that a lot of the hospitals weren't ready for me. They were facing a Category 5 hurricane. They were worried about their roof blowing off. They weren't worried about the latest and greatest technology. So it was going to take a little time for that to develop. I support those guys wholeheartedly. I still have great relationships there. They're going to do fantastic. But what they were asking me to do was take a step back in my career, and they were asking for me to um, call on local physician offices and network with office managers. And I kind of grew out of that. When I first started my career, maybe that would have been a better fit for me, but I had more of strategic vision for what I wanted to do. And I wanted to build the bridge between, certain medical device manufacturers and Vital Connect. And we just needed sales to stay afloat. So we decided to part ways, and I help those guys whenever I can. But um, I had a colleague that went to Cisco, and she said, "Hey, IT is great. You're gonna love it over here. Check it out. They're looking for people like us." She had a similar background at St. Jude Medical. They need people that can tell the story and understand the story of healthcare, and then can translate it to what Cisco can bring to the table. So that's how I joined the Cisco team.
Oh man. First I'm gonna tell you that's a wonderful story. And that at the point in time that you made that decision that you went to Cisco, you knew who you were. You knew what your skill sets are, and you knew what was going to make you successful going forward. Not to say that the company won't be successful, it's just where you're at, it has to be that right fit. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. And it's not a right or wrong. on either side. It's just, you can't make circles fit into squares, right? I mean, it's difficult, right? So, but now you're at Cisco, and are you a healthcare sales leader? I mean, what is your role? What are you doing there at Cisco that makes you special?
Great question. So I was brought into Cisco as an account manager. The reason I was attracted to Cisco was because the territory had all healthcare accounts in it. So I have 11 accounts total. I think 9 of which are healthcare, like hospitals or large physician groups, that type of thing. And then I have some home builders, and I have a Cardi, interestingly enough. So when I got to Cisco, though, I wanted to network within Cisco and build my brand within Cisco. So I remember stepping out on a ledge one call. So we have healthcare community of interest calls. So they have everybody in healthcare joins a call 10 o'clock on Thursday. And we just talk about what's new, what we're seeing in the field, how we can help. They bring in special guest speakers. And I remember a moment where I said, okay, Anthony, if you're going to do this and you're going to make a name for yourself, now's the time to speak up on that call and introduce yourself to the world and say, hey, I'm here and I have a lot to bring to the table. So I remember when I spoke out, I asked a specific question around shifting care from the acute care environment to the patient's home. And the leader of the call said, who are you and what? Like she was just like, it was a curveball. And I knew at that point that I really had something special, and I caught their attention. So then that allowed for me to tell a very abbreviated story, the story I just told to you all on a call of 400 people. And then I thought I caught some executives' attention because they asked for me to be part of the healthcare steering committee, which was a really nice honor being asked to join and participate. And then I brought some kind of unique ideas to the table around collaboration where we can blend remote patient monitoring and video calls. So just imagine a Zoom visit like we're having right now. It would be on WebEx if it was ours, but just imagine a patient's vital signs being populated in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. So that adds different quality to that video visit. So things like that are what I brought to the table. And then this was really cool. So on last Wednesday, I my wife says, "Hey, can you go downstairs and make sure you lock the door?" And I was like, I'm pretty sure I locked it." She's like, "Are you sure you locked it?" Oh, no, I'm not. All right. So I go downstairs and I leave my phone in my office purposely so I don't check it 24/7. And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna walk by my office, I may as well check my phone. Well, that leader that I was talking about earlier, who led that healthcare committee call, right? She sent me a WebEx message saying, "Hey, I can't be on the call to run the call. Could you host it for me?" And I was like, "Ooh, now we're doing it. Now I'm being asked to host the call." So clearly I'm doing something right. But that led to a sense of anxiety. Is okay. Well, how am I going to spend an hour coordinating the executive team and holding the fort down as our healthcare leader is calling on our executives internally? But it went well. I enjoyed it. I think it was something that I think is important, that I've always felt, is to get outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
From the day one, getting outside of my comfort zone was saying, you know what, I've never been to a corporate office before, but this recruiter says I can get a job in pharmaceuticals. I'm gonna go meet him in Boca Raton off of Clintmore Road. What do I have to lose? So I've kind of had that mantra my entire career is let's just get a little uncomfortable and see where it takes you.
Well, you doing a fantastic job, and you're in an industry now because I'm in that merge. I'm in the same merge of healthcare and information technology. And before, healthcare was more of a laggard, I would say, uh, especially in some of the clinical settings, definitely in the facilities, it was just, took a back seat to other priorities in the hospital system. Well, because of now COVID, they understand digital transformation is a must, and that they need to do it to survive. They've got to be able to do more with less. They've got a shortage in labor. And how are you going to fill that gap other than utilizing some technology, some type of way? And one thing I've learned about technology is that is a great tool when it comes to the collapsing of time windows. so that your time to do a task can be shortened, as well as give you very timely information for decision support. And that's what I found very, very impactful, especially in healthcare. So I want to ask you, talk to me, because a lot of my audience out there are healthcare professionals. Tell me, if I am running a hospital, I'm the CEO of a hospital, maybe even the CIO of a hospital, and I've been doing certain things a certain way, and I need to now make a pivot. I need to make a change. And you pretty much understand some of the day-to-day applications and operations of a hospital. What do I need to do right now to make a difference?
That's a great question. I think we touched on it earlier. It's just identifying who you are as an organization, identifying where your strengths are. And I think that there's probably a lot of misunderstanding between the clinical folks and the IT folks. So I was brought on to translate the clinical needs and translate it to an IT deliverable that Cisco can provide. Forget about Cisco though. I think the step one would be for an assessment. So there's certain tools that are out there now that I don't think are utilized nearly enough. As an example, there's at HIMSS, they developed an in-fram model. And what in-fram does is it allows for hospitals to answer that question, which is, hey man, can we do this? You know, a doctor goes to a conference, he goes to TCT or he goes to ACC. I use cardiology because there's my experience, but he sees something really cutting edge and he brings it back to the hospital and he gets the VP of clinical services fired up and says, hey, we got to do this. He has pressures within his peer group. He has pressures as a business person. If he's a private practice, he's got pressures as an internal employee to generate RVUs, and he sees a better way to improve patient care. So he comes back fired up and he says, hey, IT, we need this. And IT says, well, we can't do it. We don't have the infrastructure to do this. That's great. So I think IT is put in a position often where they're on the defense of the clinical folks. The clinical folks see the latest and greatest. And us sales reps, I mean, the medical device reps are really good at what they do. They know how to tell a story and they know how to get other peers to talk to their doctors. So that peer-to-peer interaction is really powerful. And the medical device reps are trained to do so. So it often puts the IT folks in a defensive posture, whereas they're just expected to make it work. Well, what Infram does, and what I liked Infram was because it was a third-party model that was generated in conjunction, actually, with Cisco and HIMSS, and then it helps hospitals understand their capabilities, and it brings the clinical folks on the same sheet of music as the IT folks. So when they kind of have an understanding of what can be done, it really helps them develop a roadmap of what they need to do in the future to help facilitate some of these exotic concepts that really aren't so exotic except for in healthcare. I mean, you check in for a flight. I want to make my hospitals, I want to give them the ability to offer an experience like checking in for a flight. Like imagine your care experience starts well before you actually, put on a gown or get on the cath lab table. It starts with checking in on that appointment. What does a hospital's digital front door look like? What are they doing outside of the traditional four walls of the hospital so that, the patient's experience is already going well even before their day of surgery. And we can do that. We can help them through that. I think I struggle with getting the attention of these executives saying, hey, look, think of Cisco as more than just a IT brand, right? We now have a healthcare practice that I'm a very big part of. So when we think about branding ourselves, I think I have the pedigree to tell the story. I understand a lot of the needs and the struggles, and being able to understand the dynamics between the clinical folks and the IT folks is crucial as we, try to come together and build care delivery in 2025. I mean, the pandemic is a blessing and a curse. I think the healthcare industry realizes that we are a laggard, and especially in Florida. You think of Florida as being like I thought of Florida was like, hey, if you're going to be in medical sales, move to Florida. Makes total sense. But then when I had more of a regionalized role, some of the things I saw in other parts of the Southeast were so impressive. I couldn't believe that we didn't have these technologies and some of the I don't know, open-minded conversations. I think part of it is the lack of teaching institutions in the state of Florida. There's not, a ton of teaching institutions, and a lot of these thought leaders come from these teaching institutions like Emory and Piedmont up in the Atlanta area. So.
No, I hear what you're saying. And for my audience, they might not be familiar with Infram. Could you tell them how they would get that information? Where can they look that up?
Yeah, so I would say on HIM's website would be the best way to start. That's the really go to the source for information to start with on Infram. I think that's a really good way to have that conversation. There's certain companies out there that offer services where they'll actually walk you through an Infram assessment. I think it should take about 10 hours for an organization to get through this, and this would incorporate communication with the clinical folks, the IT folks. Recently, Cisco did introduce a service where we'll do the Infram for them and help organize it and then provide that roadmap.
When you say Infram, is that like capital NFRAM, or is it spelled differently?
You nailed it. INFRAM, Infram.
Infram, INFRAM. I want the audience to know that. I think that's a great first step to get an assessment, see where you're at, what's your current state, and then begin to imagine what does the future state look like, or reimagine your. I like how you gave the airline example, where you think about hospitality. I know when we go to Disney, you go to Disney and what you book into Disney, they start that Disney experience from the time that you actually book it, and maybe even as you're booking that time to come into their experience. Now we understand going to the hospital is not the same as going to Disney. Don't get it wrong. But you want to take away a lot of that anxiety. You want people to understand where they're going, why they're doing it, how to get to where they need to go to see certain physicians and that type of thing. And I think that's something that technology can certainly do, especially giving them a concierge type feel for a patient experience.
Yeah, I think part of the fear of healthcare is it sometimes it feels impersonal. Your message around Disney is funny. It reminds me of a story. I was working with Advent Health up in Orlando, and I remember the director said, "We're trying to provide the Disney experience." Because their celebration, right? They are in Disney. They specifically reference Disney, and I think about when I used to go to Tampa General all the time, and I stayed at the Epicurean Hotel. It's right across from Burns Steakhouse. Fantastic place. Not to plug them. Can I do that on here? But whatever.
Yes, you can.
Fantastic.
Go right ahead.
Fantastic steakhouse, Epicurean, great hotel. And I would walk into the Epicurean, and every time they'd say, "Hey, Mr. Farina, welcome back. Good to see you." I was always wondering, how do they do that? How do they know it's me? Well, as soon as you sign on to their Wi-Fi, you accept some terms and conditions so that as soon as it sees you again, it alerts them and they know, hey, Mr. Farina's here. He stayed here 14 times and he likes to stay in this room. So then I started thinking about, well, why don't we have that in healthcare? Why don't we utilize that same technology in hospitality in healthcare so that when my mom walks in the Jupiter Medical Center, say, "Hey, Mrs. Farina, it's really nice to see you. We're waiting for you. You're going to be okay." That goes a long way, and I think we get caught up in HCAPS and value-based purchasing, but at the heart of it, it's really just showing patients that you care and you have their best interests in heart, and technology can do that. We just have to stop, think, and have the open mind to see, okay, well, what are other organizations and other verticals doing? It's interesting when I see hospitals hiring from outside of healthcare. I remember I was shocked. It was like 10 years ago. I was at Broward Health, and I remember, I forget the name, but the new environmental services director they hired from Ritz-Carlton. And I just thought that was so crazy. It was so weird at the time. And then now it makes total sense that they're looking to provide, a different experience for their patients. So that's where we're headed. And
no, you're right. And basically what you're saying is that you've got to bring in people that have the knowledge and the experience already. They're used to it. Whether they're coming in from the cruise line industry, they're coming from the hospitality or hotel industry or the restaurant industry. It's about people, basically. Then how can you embed and immerse people into your experience using technology, whether you're a hospital or not? Remember, you're at a very vulnerable point when you start coming to a hospital. And a lot of times you got to do have to do repeat experiences. No one likes wanting to give the same information over and over and over again, especially when you're in a stressful situation. So I 100% agree with you. I think we're trying to get to that point, and I think the market, the consumerization of healthcare, is driving hospitals toward that because of the competitive nature and that type of thing. So before we're going to conclude here in a moment, and before I do that, I always want to give an opportunity for my guests to speak directly to the audience. So if you had, if you have some things, some thoughts that you have not already talked about that you want to say directly to my audience, and remember, these are a lot of people in my audience are healthcare centric, and they also are information technology centric, and they're coming together. Some of them are early adopters, some of them are very senior level executives. What type of wisdom or knowledge would you like to give to them that you think would help them on their journey?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think understanding who you are as an organization and being honest with yourself as an organization, like I said earlier about that in-frame example, using companies like Cisco to help you through that process, I think is a great first step. You touched on the consumerism in healthcare. I think that's the next phase of healthcare is branding is going to become so important in healthcare because you can actually pick up patients and manage populations based on your brand. If you live in a rural America, having the Mayo Clinic brand and having the ability for Mayo Clinic to reach rural America, I think there's a huge opportunity for for competition in healthcare. I think, oh man, there is certainly going to be competitive forces in the near future where there is going to be major brands in healthcare that are going to be able to compete on a national level. And I think that local providers are going to have to adapt in order to maintain relevance. In the past, what we saw a lot of consolidation. We saw hospitals joining larger IDNs. Now what we're going to see are those larger IDNs expanding their breadth into other more competitive marketplaces, using their brand. So I think we'll see more advertising from places like the Mayo Clinic. We'll see more advertising. I see Tampa General advertising in Jupiter, Florida, even though they're 3.5 hours away. By having a digital health footprint and being able to deliver care digitally, it expands their marketplace and it allows for them to capture patients outside of their immediate geographic location. I also see the ability for regional providers to keep patients. So imagine in Florida, it's very common for people to live in the Northeast and then for them to snowbird and come down to South Florida, and then they seek care at Tenet or HCA. Well, why can't they stay with Columbia Presbyterian and just utilize their digital health platform? So I think there's a lot of risks, and as we come out of the pandemic, hospitals are going to have to be really considerate of that consumerization of healthcare in order to be a player as we look to 2023 to 2024. I think that'd be the big takeaway.
No, that's a huge takeaway because change is constant. If we've learned anything about what is constant, change is constant. Man, this has been wonderful. I learned a lot in talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate my audience here at 5-Star BDM. We are building a brand that people can follow, and we definitely want to follow Mr. Anthony Forina. So I really appreciate you being a guest tonight. And again, everybody, this will be on all the major podcast stations. You can actually tune in on YouTube now. We're repurposing a lot of our content on YouTube, and you can contact us at www.5starbdm. That's B for brand, D for development, and for masters.com. Until next time, thank you very much for being a guest, Anthony.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
5-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-Star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Follow the Brand. We're deep into our technology innovation series, and I wanted to highlight one of the industry professionals, somebody that I have always admired from afar. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the healthcare world, where healthcare and technology come together to solve problems. This is the number one thing that we need to do, especially as we come out of COVID. How can we now take what we've learned for the last couple of years and bring it to the forefront, and how we can get better in what we do every day to solve customer issues or patient issues? So I want to introduce Bob Delaney. Come on up to the stage and let's have a conversation.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Graham. Great to be here.
Well, this is going to be wonderful. So first of all, tell me just a little bit about who you are and how you began your career.
Sure. So I'm a New York native. Went to school in New York City. I was in the military, so I was in Desert Storm. Joined the Navy. I was a Navy nuke. For those of you who know what that is, I didn't go subs. I went surface. I couldn't handle submarines, so I stayed away from that. Got out, married. Went to North Carolina and noodled my way down to Jacksonville, Florida. So. Love to body surf. I have to do the Atlantic. I can't do the Gulf side. Sorry, guys. No offense to the people on the Gulf, but I just enjoy it here. I don't plan to move, and just trying to, I'm in the, I guess I don't want to say twilight of my career, but latter part of my career, in the healthcare sector, probably for about 6-7 years, and just love the aspect of patient outcomes and doing what's, when someone walks into the hospital, they're not having their best day, and you want to make it, but both for them and their family, of course you want the patient outcome, but the best experience is possible, and also on the clinician side. So that's kind of what drives me today.
I tell you, our paths crossed through our HIMSS family. I'm the program chair down here in South Florida. You have been a member and part of the board up there in Central Florida, and we came together. I know you work for Pure Storage, a very a large, well-known flash drive company, and now you're working for another company. You're doing some things around IoT, and I think in the security space, what I think is very, very interesting. So I wanted to find out, like, some advice you would give someone to pursue, a career similar to yours, and give us some understanding what you're doing now.
Sure, no, absolutely. So I've done most of I'll call it the IT stack in the data center. So I've done Cisco, VMware, and as you said, Pure Storage. And now I'm over, I guess you want to think about it as kind of the other side of the fence, or the the dark mist from an IT perspective over on the hospital side, right? So we do IoT security, protecting the things that are connected to the patient. I'll cover that here in a little bit. But in terms of pursuing a career, so my road was more down the technical path. So I started out in a very technical position, and it's been probably a good half of my career. And moving over to the sales side, when you're on the technical side, you look at the sales guys, all they do is buy dinners, they just schmooze the client. It's so easy. How do I get a job like that? I'm over here grinding, looking at all the bits and bytes going through my screen. Those guys have no clue what real work is, right? So I made that transition, to pursue a career like mine. So first of all, you have to find out what you at least like, if not love, right? So if you're younger out there, my advice would be dabble around, ask people, don't be afraid to ask. You'd be shocked at how many people, I'll say my age, because you can see the gray hair, are willing and more than willing to kind of sit down, spend 15 minutes with you and kind of give you those little bit of, information nuggets to help guide you. I personally did not have that, right? So I was told, you get good grades, go to good college, you'll do this. And as I, move ladder upon my career, it's more about taking what, God has given you from an ability perspective, whatever that is, right? It could be a whole host of things, and then persevere and just, don't ever let anybody tell you can't do anything, and just keep persevering. And eventually you're going to either shift gears, right? Go down a different path, or you're going to have very, very good success. So my advice would be, find out what you love, right? Talk to people. Don't be afraid to talk to people. I find young people, especially, millennials and whatever the generation is before the millennials, they're very introverted, I guess. Is that from the smartphone? Just reach out. People are more than willing to talk. And then, don't reinvent the wheel. There's some excellent, if you're looking to get into sales, excellent sales books out there. I can provide some quick recommendations. And then just, it's a grind, as you know, right? It's not easy. So again, I'll go back to my previous comment when I was the technical guy looking across the dinner table at the guy who was picking up the check and going, wow, I wish I had that job. That job is so easy. So it's learning those people skills and those soft skills and how to read language and how not to be the sales guy, right? And just really try to put yourself in the customer's shoes and find out, and I'll say this is a quick tangent. The hardest part of sales is listening, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? There's a way God created. There's a reason why God created us like that. And you could be chomping at the bit. And I just came from the Alabama Hymns event, and I can tell you a story there where you're chomping at the bit to say something, but it's not the right time. It's not the right situation, right? So don't swing that bat just yet, right? And whereas if you're a little bit younger, you'll be like, immediately try to jump in and try to say, okay, yeah, you're having a great conversation. I'm going to switch gears and try to, sell this guy something. It's like, no, back off, right? He's not there. He's there to enjoy himself or what have you. So it's those soft skills and relationships, and how to build really solid relationships and trying to do what's best for the customer. And being a sales guy, I probably shouldn't say this, regardless of what it means for the actual sale, right? I think real success comes from sales is put yourself in the customer's shoes. What are they thinking? What are they trying to do? Can you or can you not help them? And if the answer is you can't help them, say that up front, right? Don't waste people's time. Just say up front, hey, there's not a match here. Maybe there will be in 6 months when things change. Is it okay if I check back with you, right? And kind of just keep it very natural, I guess. But anyway, if you're trying to get into the sales career, again, I took a little bit of a odd path through the technical avenue, but don't reinvent the wheel, and talk to people, basically.
I think what you're saying is so important. And I am business development, my job now, business development executive. Selling, I've been doing it for 25 years. I don't like the word because especially when you're doing high-end information technology deployments, you don't want to appear like your typical stereotypical salesperson who just shows up, tells you a bunch of stuff that has totally irrelevant to what you're doing now. right?
Exactly.
A good person, a good salesperson, I would say, yes, you have to listen. But then when you have your opportunity to say something, you want to be able to give them knowledge that they cannot get. You got to remember, 70% of what you're probably selling or representing is available on the internet, right? So you've got to be able to give them experience and understanding about certain things that you cannot get to the internet. Like, how is this really going to work in my environment? What are the trends that you're seeing that other people that or other organizations similar to mine, now how are they utilizing that technology? Or, was it working and one it's not? And what they're expecting you to do is to give them, the truth of that situation, because every situation is different. People need to understand, clearly what it is, what their objectives that they're trying to accomplish. I think you do that at an exceptional level. And that's how you establish yourself as expert and a go-to person in your field. And I think you've done that. You're the person to contact, right? You say, if I really want to know about this, and that's what you want your clients to do. I want to contact Bob. First of all, Bob understands the technology because he was a technology, so he speaks my language, and he understands the financial implications of this situation. What does that look like? And he understands what we're trying to do. We actually are here, especially now, helping patients to get better. And if you're doing something like that to help that, and you can articulate that at a high level, I think that's wonderful. And any thoughts around that, Bob?
Yeah, so I mean, I talk about listening. It's also the questions that you ask, right? So ask open-ended questions, and any sales training is going to tell you that and how to do that. You can use the value selling. There's different programs out there to do that. But at the end of the day, if you're at the CIO level and you've got 20 minutes with him, you want to find out what his priorities are, obviously, maybe even how he's measured, right? How is he measured internally in the organization? And then what you can offer, right, given enough, experience is, hey, this is what your peers are doing, right? And he may talk to his peers, at different conferences. So that's kind of matter. If you can give 10 minutes of what his peers are actually doing, and again, be honest, right? Maybe some of it actually works in some way, shape, or form against what you're selling, but be flat out honest with them. And this is what your peers are doing. And I think that builds a level of trust, because as you know, there's no silver bullet out there. No solution provides 100% of what the customer is looking for. Just say, hey, Mr. Customer, you told me 10 things. We can do 8 really, really well. 9 is probably on the roadmap. 10 is probably never going to happen in our product. Is that a make or break for this? Is that a make or break for you?
Honesty.
And that, I mean, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I've been at conferences and CIOs come up and talk to me, and I tell them we're not a good fit for you. We're just not. Check back in 6 months, right? And I've had one customer tell me, wow, I've never had a vendor say that to me. It's just like, well, because as the vendor, you have better insight into, and just from an overall technology perspective, what a good fit looks like, right?
Yeah.
And what not a good fit looks like. And if the customer's falling into that category, just tell them, right? Move on, right? Why spend 3, 4, 5 meetings and then discover, oh, we're not a good fit, when right up front that they're not a good fit. So just say it like it is. You get respect and kind of move on, because you have 2,000 selling hours if you want to count 4,000, 4 hours, 40 hours a week in the year. And you have to spend that time on people who can buy or lead a path to buying, people who fit your profile of what I'll call a good candidate, and people who have some sort of pain or initiative to actually act. Because especially in healthcare, well, take COVID aside, right, and the dynamics in COVID for a second, status quo is probably, as a vendor coming in trying to purport a new solution, status quo is probably your biggest competition. It's not the vendor next to you, it's actually status quo. So one of my favorite questions is, and I'll use this depending on who I'm talking to, is do nothing an option, right? If we were to sit here today, Grant, and a year later you don't have a solution, pick your solution, is that a make or break for you? Right. And that the answer to that will very quickly tell you, hey, and from the security perspective, it could be, well, we've been thinking about this, it's on a priority, but yeah, in a year, if we hadn't done nothing, it's not a make or break. Or the answer could be like, we have an audit coming in 2 months, and if I don't do something, frankly, I'm going to get fired. Right. So having just, and you can use that selectively. And again, that's kind of the selling the art, right? But really finding out where the customer's at, where's this head's at, where's this priority, because you are one portion or sliver of his overall day. And the fact that he may not call you back, and I talked about perseverance or answer your emails immediately or what have you, doesn't mean that he's not interested, doesn't mean he doesn't think your solution is important. It just means, as you know, in healthcare, people wear a ton of hats, and they are, especially with the great resignation and the remote work now and getting pulled from different industries, IT staff in healthcare tends to lose some folks. They're busy, right? And you have to be cognizant of that and try to help them along as much as possible. So, patience, perseverance again, and just try to do the right thing by the customer, be completely transparent, right? So I am completely transparent with clients and prospects, and I think they appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Now I want you to be transparent right now. And we're going to go into a scenario, and I want you to talk to me as I am a CIO or just a interested party in digital transformation, meaning just like with the great resignation, what's happening in healthcare is digital transformation, getting outside of these legacy systems, putting forth a digital presence that is impactful, that is distributed, that is sticky, and that what makes me a top of mind person within my community as far as experience. Now, with all that said, I want to understand what you do from a IoT perspective. What you do? I've heard of these things. These are buzzwords. Internet of Things have been around, prior to COVID, but now we're getting into another realm where we might even be getting budget because the industry of healthcare must make a shift from a digital transformation perspective. So talk to me about why IoT and what you're doing is important.
Sure, no, absolutely. No, thanks, Grant. So I'll take it on a personal level. So I can show it right here. So I have a Fitbit Ionic. Oh, you can't see it, Robert. It's on recall right now from Fitbit. And I love my Ionic, and I think they nerfed the latest firmware update, so I can't actually use it now. The reason why I bring this up is, this is an IoT device, and I'm looking at the new ones, and they've got apps on there like EKG monitoring and all this other stuff. So connected healthcare and the propensity of taking your care, I'll use a broad way of describing taking your care with you, or it being very personalized, is increasing at the hospital at an exponential rate. I think there's going to be something like 75 billion IoT devices by 2025, a global, worldwide, in the medical field. What that means is they have to be connected, right? So, the good old internet, things like IV pumps, patient monitors, getting connected is great and is transformational from a patient care experience, right? So eventually, right, maybe 10 years from now, I get sick, the doctor just connects to my Fitbit here that I'm holding up, and he actually diagnosed me and prescribes me, and I go and pick up my thing, right? And so there's not even a meeting, right? Forget about telehealth, there's not even a meeting, right? Or maybe there's an indication on that, hey, maybe you need to go get checked out. So I think we're getting there. To your point about breaking down the four walls, right? As the data starts to get dispersed out, the data becomes inherently more vulnerable. And it's not that people call them bad actors, right? Is the correct term. I'll use the term hackers, right? If they go and they get into a hospital, traditionally IT is thinking about servers and storage and EMR data, et cetera. But a lot of hospitals still are what I'll call typically flat from a network perspective, meaning there's not a lot of segmentation or breaking apart of the different components in a hospital. So it can bleed over into the hospital, into where the patients actually are, and things like IV pumps, you can't put antivirus on those things. They're very, very sensitive. They're FDA certified. So think of it like, I don't know, buying a car, right? You can't change the engine at the car dealership. It's lock, stock, and barrel. It's a black box. You can't really touch it. And a lot of these systems are running very, very old operating systems. Think Windows 95. Yes, I'm being serious, right? Even some Windows XP out there, maybe some Windows NT even. Anyway, long story short, what we find is about 80 to 90% of the time, if you want to protect the device, you have to do it at the network side. There's not a patch available from the vendor, either on the application side or from the OS. So we've come close a couple times. There's a case in Alabama. There's a couple cases in Germany, but it's not that the hackers are coming into the hospital to kill people, basically, but they're coming in to make money and, extort the hospitals, unfortunately, with ransomware. And, the latest one, it happened right with the Colonial Pipeline with Scripps. So that was $110 million soup to nuts impact to that hospital. And they're about 1,500 beds, 1,500 to 2,000 beds or so. So that didn't really make the news because we were all concentrating on Colonial Pipeline and getting gas. But at the end of the day, the risk is what's keeping, and I hate to use this term because it's cliche, but it's keeping the CIOs and CEOs up at night. That's really like, I don't want to be on the news as 50 patients died in my hospital because this bled over into the medical side. So what we do is we're very, very good at visibility, but we're especially good at security, right? You have to see what you have, right? And a lot of hospitals don't have systems to actually see all their IoT systems. We can provide that. But more importantly, once I see it and I see all the vulnerabilities that are there, I need to do something. I need to be actionable, right? I need to do so. I need to tell my IT people, hey, here's your work list for today to increase our security score by 5 points. And this is what we need to do. And when they give that down to their folks, it's usually on the network segmentation side, not the patch side, right? And that's kind of the dirty little secret in the industry, because a lot of times when we talk about the solution, the security guys are like, yeah, that's all on the biomed or the IT or the medical side. We're like, yes, it is. However, when the remediation comes, it's going to come back on you, right? To do something from a network segmentation side. So I see it becoming more of an issue. And, I use my Fitbit as an example, but in the hospital, wearables, right? You're post-op, right? Instead of, having all this stuff connected to you. Now, granted, like IV pumps are typically wireless connected. They're not hardwired. Why? Because people want to go to the bathroom, right? And use the IV pump, right? You don't want to be strung to a cord, right? Or the doctor says, hey, you need to walk around the hall of the hospital as part of your rehab 20 times a day. You might be wearing a wearable, right, to monitor all your vital signs and everything, to make sure everything's okay, or it's going to beep or tell a nurse to come get you if something looks wrong or what have you. So the connectivity and the amount of information that's going to start, and has started, that's going to come from what I'll call mobile IoT is going to increase significantly. Again, it's all about patient care, improving the outcome, but however, the security aspect cannot be forgotten about.
I think the threat landscape just got wider. And from a CIO, CISO perspective, that's what I see. You cannot stop wearables from coming into your environment, whether it's on your wireless network or from a remote patient monitoring perspective. What do all those things look like? You just talked about assets, being able to track everything that's out there from an IoMT or Internet of Medical Things and that security. Well, this has been a wonderful, I'm gonna call you, say Mr. Delaney.
No, after this conversation. That's in the military. You're going to give me military.
Mr. Delaney. He said, oh no, that's Bob's father, Mr. Delaney. No.
No worries.
It's been great, boy. Great sharing. Thank you very much for coming onto the show. I'll tell everyone you can see all the episodes of Follow the Brand at www.5starbdm, and that is B for brand and D for development and M for masters.com. Thank you very much, Bob, and continue to enjoy your day.
Hey, take care. Thanks, Grant. See you.
You're welcome. Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.5starbdm/follow Follow the Brand TV. Thank you. Hey everyone, it's Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM and host of the award-winning Follow the Brand podcast and TV series, where I help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. My genius is personal brand development through intelligent communication and helping you achieve your business and career goals. I am a requested speaker on digital technology and brand development issues. I want to work with you to increase the value of your current opportunities while attracting new ones. Every one of you is unique, and we all share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. As a super connector, I work with you as an executive coach to guide you along the complicated business and career development road, providing the enhancement tools and information you need to succeed. Together, I will help you succeed in today's challenging business climate. I will evaluate and measure your progress. Best of all, I am right alongside you every step of the way. Build the brand called you. Genius.